Catch on. All right, gentlemen, we are live on Explain Yourself, the Kickstarter Roundtable. We are starting to do, Will and I, every Friday night. Will, how are you tonight?
Doing all right, man. How about you? I know
I'm
it's hot and dangerous in Florida at this point.
Hot and dangerous.
So basically your average Friday night in Florida.
Yeah, you know, we're getting rid of the weak and the strong and the healthy and the unhealthy. We're just, getting rid of everybody. So that's Florida for you. But we got our intrepid governor who's really looking out for somebody.
Himself.
Don't know who. Yeah. Looking out for the White House is what he's looking out for. But hopefully he doesn't look over anybody in a couple of years. All right, so we're going to go around as we've been talking a little bit for in the back. Mike, why don't you introduce yourself and give us a 30-second elevator pitch of the crowdfunding book you're doing right now.
Sure. So I'm Mike Shea. I'm the writer on Miskatonic High. We are crowdfunding number 12 right now, as well as a crossover collection that we did. Miskatonic High is 5 teenagers take on Lovecraft monsters in their small town high school, and they're just not sure which is worse. So yeah, we've been doing it for a while. We're there every other month, and right now we got a whole lot going on, which we're going to talk about.
David, why don't you come in, since I think you're the crossover king with Mike on this, right?
Yes, I am. So I'm with Lovecraft PI, meeting Miskatonic High on this one. And Lovecraft PI, he's a detective. Ward Lovecraft is a detective from the 1930s. And he was a war veteran from World War I. He's a scientist in his own right and a doctor. And he fights cosmic monsters for the Miskatonic Supernatural Detective Agency.
That's great.
Kind
I don't know if you know, Will writes crossover division, so we're gonna have a lot of crossover talk. Frank, how are you doing, buddy? Can you hear us? I can. Let's try. You can hear us. Frank. We can't hear you. Can you unmute that mic?
So close.
We are.
So very close.
All right. So what I'm going to do, Frank, give 1 second. I think Frankie, why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll try to unmute while Frankie's introducing himself.
Sounds good. I'm Frankie White. I'm a writer, and my project is called Eat My Flesh, Drink My Blood, and it is a Midsummer by way of Lucio Fulci 70s grindhouse, giallo style films.
Cool.
That's how our artist described it, which I thought was way better than what I was thinking. So I'm going with that.
Grindhouse, a little bit of.
Oh, it's going to be, it's grindhousey, very much the old, drive-in flair. If you watch like Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs and stuff like that, something that would fit in nicely in that niche.
Cool. All right, we're going to go much more into that. Frank, I want to hear your voice. No.
You want it.
It's not. It wasn't muted. I don't know.
Frank, you're gonna do it.
This is
interpretive dance.
This is our first technical difficulties.
Our first mime of the show.
He can just get us like a whiteboard and write on that.
It was so amazing when we were talking to him before we went live. He could not hear us, and we could hear him fine. And when he came back in, he could hear us great, and it just.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to introduce Frank Martin a little bit later, or we won't. I don't know. Hopefully we will, because he's got a cool Lovecraftian Kickstarter going on. So I think it's going to be perfect to have a conversation if we can have the conversation. Let's do this. I've done Kickstarters. We've been talking about Kickstarters, and I have so much to learn about Kickstarters. But Frankie, you're crowdfunding, not Kickstarting. So can you tell us how the Dauntless crowdfunding platform works, the idea? Let's walk us in. I want to hear that information, and then we'll get into some other things.
So Dauntless has their own crowdfunding platform, which is called Greenlight. And basically, it's sort of closer to Indiegogo in the sense that you don't need to fund like the entire amount that you put out there. The entire amount is just sort of an estimate of what we think maybe what it'll cost. But really, the good thing about it is that we're getting the money immediately. As soon as you pay, you've pre-ordered the book. We're making it no matter what. It's coming out. It's not reliant on making a goal or anything like that. We're still making it. But the money that comes in through those pre-orders goes directly to the creative team. And then anything that we don't, like say we reach like 5K out of our 10K goal, Dauntless is still paying the page rates after that. But this is a way to subsidize and help them out too, because Dauntless is a very small publishing company right now.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and this cover is just, I've seen this on social media. It is so gorgeous.
Oh yeah, I'm pumping that Sky Patridge, our variant for the hardcover version. We're only doing a really, really limited print number. It's 100 max, but we're only going to print who pre-orders. So if we don't get 100 pre-orders for that book, we're not going to print 100 and have any left over. It's specifically for people who are like taking the plunge with us ahead of time. You get that book. And it's going to be sweet.
Hello.
We can hear you, Frank.
Third time's the charm.
And we can see your dog.
Yeah, she's like, why are you getting so pissed off? Like,
so Frank, hold on one sec. We're gonna hear a little bit more about Eat My Flesh, Drink My Wine. Drink My Wine. That's me.
Let's see, where was I?
So how did you go about meeting the people at Dauntless to even get this book moving?
So I had met Markus online on Twitter, right? Met, quote unquote. Like maybe like a year or two ago now at this point, it feels like. He had seen a short that I did with the artist from 25th, and he really liked that short. And we were originally talking about expanding that into a full thing. But then eventually I was like, actually, I have this way crazier idea where we're going to do like super violent, lots of nudity, a whole back half of the book, everybody's naked. Like, we're going to really like push the boundaries of taste. And he was like, fuck yeah. Like, let's do it. It was my easiest pitch ever with the craziest idea. So meeting Markus was a blessing. He is a really great guy. What he's doing with Dauntless is, I feel like it's special. He's giving people the creative autonomy they need to tell the story they need to tell without having to compromise it based on what the market might need, to make like a ton of money or anything like that. It's about servicing like the artist first. And then hopefully if you commit to an idea and you do it good, people will buy into it no matter what.
Great. In the passion of the entire, I can see on social media, you're passionate about this book. And if he was just like, the bloodier and the more naked, the better. Which,
which is great. Normally some people might be like, oh, well, we can't sell this somewhere. And it's like, no, let's just do it. I mean, I can't go into details about why everybody's naked or anything like that because it's spoilers, but there's a reason for it.
A total artistic merit.
Do we have a link for the Kickstarter? Well, it's not Kickstarter. The Dauntless site.
Yes, we do.
There we go.
Dauntless Stories /EMFDMB. So Dave Matthews Band is part of this somehow. I'm not exactly sure, but
our before we officially announced it, our project title was just Dave because real fans call him Dave. So,
you've talked about that limited cover. Who's your artist again on the series?
It's not a series. It's a 52-page one and done graphic novella. If we want to be fancy pants, or a one shot if you want to be layman. So it's one and done story, beginning, middle, and end when you buy it. The artist on it is Adam Markowitz, who worked with me on Broken Bear, and the colorist is AHG, who also worked with me on Broken Bear. They're like my soulmates for creative partners. I love working with them, and I think it's like our life mission to consistently be like working on a project together forever until we have like some sort of Beatles-esque breakup.
You know what? If you get as big as the Beatles and break up, that's nobody has a problem.
It's worth it, really. At that point, screw them at that point.
Frank, I think we're going to be able to hear you and you can hear us. So can you give us a 30-second pitch on your book, and then we're going to cheat and just go into your Kickstarter. So what are you crowdfunding? What is the book? And I'm going to pull it up on screen.
I'm crowdfunding a book right now that's called Pipe Creepers. And the simple pitch is it's about two plumbers that go to work in a creepy mansion, and they go into the basement to do their job, and they get kind of trapped in a Lovecraft adventure or horror or whatever you want to put it. They get, and it's mainly Lovecraft inspired. Like I'm a big fan of the non-Cthulhu Lovecraft stories, the stuff that's outside the mythos. So I wrapped a lot of that dread and a lot of that atmospheric horror that's in it, but it's not meant to be like a scary, gory horror. It's more fun. It's more I describe it as offbeat. Like the cover, I was heavily influenced by The Burbs. I just I showed that movie poster of Tom Hanks to the cover, to the artist, and I'm like, do this. This is the feel. And that's it's supposed to be fun, kind of goofy. The people describe it as like a kind of a buddy cop feel to it because the two plumbers kind of play off of each other. And I had a lot of fun writing it because I'm a chimney sweep by trade. So I've spent a lot of time in basements with a partner, getting dirty and exploring when we're not really supposed to. So that's exactly what happens in the book. They go into this creepy basement, and the guy wants to explore, and he gets in over his head, and it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
This is a good night to be talking about Lovecraft because we've got quite a few Lovecraftian books running. So you said it's not kind of the Innsmouth. I have to admit, I'm sort of ignorant of the actual Lovecraft. I've just caught up with it because of Kickstarters. So the only thing I know about Lovecraft is from Miskatonic High and reading Pipe Cleaners and Cthulhu Invades Odds, et cetera, et cetera. But so
he's a weirdo.
Okay.
He's a weirdo. He's definitely weird. His prose are very long. He's very verbose, and it's kind of funny because he was a miserable dude. Like he was not happy ever. He was racist. He was misogynist. He died broke, poor, and very sick. And now everybody's using his work to make stories. So
to make money, baby.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he was not a happy guy, and he put that a lot into his work, and it shows because I love his he's big famous for all these elder gods, and like you said, Innsmouth, and At Mountains to Madness. But I like the shorter works that are kind of one and done's type stories that are they really get to the madness of those particular characters, and they're not as well known. And I throw a whole bunch of like Lovecraft Easter eggs in the book, so like names of characters kind of show up. And stuff like that. The characters quote different story titles like kind of naturally. So if you're a Lovecraft geek like myself, you'll pick up on it. What is the weirdest thing you've seen in a basement? The weirdest thing I've ever seen in a basement is kind of like I'm trying to think of how to describe it. It was what's the Haitian voodoo religion? Santeria?
Mm-hmm. Sounds right.
It was like a Santeria altar filled with like
That's
chicken,
cool.
like dead chickens and pictures and candles. And my partner saw it. He goes, "You got to see this." I'm like, "What is it?" He goes, "I can't tell you. You got to see it for yourself." And I walked in. I'm like, "I don't think we're supposed to be here." so yeah, you definitely see creepy stuff in the basement all the time.
And then you turned it into a comic book.
Kinda.
Yeah.
And basements are weird because you could tell a lot about a family from their basements. You know, that's kind of where they put their secrets in. And then they're like, "Yeah, come downstairs and do work." And I'm like, "Okay." And they got pictures, and they got people turned into a bars, and then like some of them are family. I could go on forever talking about basements. This is kind of weird. But yeah, I used that stuff as like story fuel for this book. Frank.
Yeah, and they probably forget it's down there, so there's probably some really embarrassing stuff.
This is actually my 4th Kickstarter of the year, not my 3rd.
Wow.
So,
Jesus.
correction.
Frank's a machine. Yeah, Polar Paradox 2 just came. I actually read it earlier this week, but it came in a few weeks ago, I think. You're just thinking about putting them down, man.
I kind of try to I limit my stuff as much as possible. So like the campaign's only 17 days. And then rather than waiting for the Kickstarter to deliver the money and order the book, I order my prints the day after. And I just like charge the credit card because I know I'm going to have the money
before it goes. Yeah.
And then I spend that time basically getting my fulfillment area ready. So as soon as I get the books, I turn around as quickly as possible shipping them out. That's my craziest time of a campaign is when I get the books and then I physically send them out, because I know I can't control how long it takes the printer to get them to me, and I can't control the postal service to do whatever the hell they do to get the books there, but I can control how quickly I ship them. So
it has to help that you have all these basements that you can kind of just lay out your stuff.
My wife hates it. She absolutely hates it. She goes, "I made you an office downstairs." I'm like, "I don't want to be downstairs. I want to package stuff while watching Netflix, not in like the corner of the house where you are ashamed of me and you want to hide me while I'm putting all these comics together."
Yeah, you get in your hole, Frank.
Pretty much. She goes, "What are these 5 gigantic boxes?" I go, those are Gemini mailers. You got boxes of boxes? What is going on here? So yeah, but I do a lot. I do the dishes and the laundry, so that I'm like, I did the dishes and laundry, so let me take over the house for 5 days while I ship all this crap.
That is such a tip. If you are married and are thinking of your first Kickstarter, it's very important to proactively go do something in the house. Get dishes, garbage out, laundry, whatever it is. Go proactively do it, and then go pack up 100 books. And you're like, "Yeah, I just did the dishes. I'm going to do some Kickstarting now." And then it's kind of like, "Oh, okay, he's in work mode. That's good." But if you just go right to packing the books, it's like.
So my wife owns a Pilates studio, and she goes to work every day, and it's across the street from a post office. So I'm like, "Are you going to work today?" She goes, "I'm not dropping anything off today." She immediately knows like the things I need to ask her to get stuff done. You're like, "Are you going to the grocery store?" Because she knows there's a Staples across the street from the grocery store. So we try to purposely avoid each other so that unless we need something. Key to a good marriage.
Try to avoid each other.
Yeah.
Trading favors.
So somebody else who does a ton of Kickstarters every year and delivers quite well. This is very fortuitous. This morning, Lady Lovecraft showed up. So Mike, thank you very much. I can't wait to get into it. Let's get into you and David's crossover. How did you guys talk to? Like, how did this happen?
So Dave and I met a while back. I was doing a Kickstarter for one of my issues, and he approached me and said, "Hey, would you check out, I'm getting a Kickstarter ready, and can you check it out?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And he showed me Lovecraft PI, and I fell for it instantly. So, the thing with me with Lovecraft is there's a lot of Lovecraft comics out there right now, and a lot of them are really straight adaptations or really trying to stick with what he was doing in the era he was doing. And what I really like is when creators take it in a different direction, like Pipe Fitters or Lovecraft PI, where, they took Lovecraft himself and turned him into a noir hero, that he served in World War I, and now he's taken on, monsters for a Pinkerton style detective agency. I loved it. I loved that it was just went off in its own direction and became a whole new thing. And, I think Dave responded similarly with what we do, which is, mix Lovecraft and high school comedy. And one of us just said, hey, what do you think about doing a crossover? And both of us liked the idea right away that, we were both established enough. He had already done 2 books and, 2 graphic novels, and we had done, 5 or 6 issues by that point. Mm-hmm. So we had enough background that, we could work from, on each other's books. And what we decided was, look, it's going to be a thing, a time travel thing. It's going to happen in present day in Miskatonic, where our kids are located. He's going to show up somehow out of time. There's going to be a whole thing, and then it's going to jump to his comic, and they're going to go back in time. And it was a lot of fun. Dave, do you want to talk about it some?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we decided to do too when we just put the books together is that Mike had his just in the construction of the book itself. Mike came to me and he's like, hey, my kids talk in this type of font and your guys talk in this type of font. Why don't we mix that in there too as well? Mm-hmm. So the little details like that we kind of both collaborated on, of adding each of our own worlds into the mix for both because it was a 2-issue series and now that it's a trade. So each one has its own flavors, but you could definitely tell that they're that both of us had a hand in it. You know what I mean? It wasn't just one paying homage to another. We both kind of worked with each other to really finesse all the little details, and I think that's where it really shines a lot.
They did that for when they had the Ultimate Universe in Marvel meet the regular universe, and they both talked in different fonts. Mm-hmm. It's always cool little tidbits like that people don't think about when they go into a crossover.
Right, and you always have one character say, hey, do I hear an accent?
Yeah. Right.
Should be.
But yeah, so, one of the fun things for us was, to really get to play with different characters and different character types, so, we, month in, month out, we're doing, high school kids, dealing with monsters. And suddenly we're throwing in, a badass noir detective into the mix. And it's like, hey, this is cool. It's like a new toy you get to play with. So we did 2 issues. They were very well received. People loved them. I mean, we had people coming up afterwards saying that they really enjoyed it, that they thought it was one of the best things we had done. And, so Dave and I were like, hey, why don't we do a little bit something special for the trade, which we're doing now, which is why don't you do like an epilogue of the Lovecraft PI from the story, and we'll do an epilogue from the Miskatonic High kids from the story and see sort of what happens next. And we ended up coming up with 23 pages for it. And so it's like a whole 3rd issue that we're doing just, for the trade and for the special hardcover. So yeah, we're kickstarting that now.
Yeah. Mike, have you read Neonomicon?
I have read Neonomicon, yeah.
It made me think of that when you were talking about Lovecraft and how different writers are taking it and doing their own thing with it. Because I'm like, this is a really weird book. Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know what it is, it's basically Lovecraft is kind of sexually repressed. Mm-hmm. That's who he is. So Alan Moore decided to take his characters and just basically make a porno out of it. It's pretty much what it is.
Oh, Alan Moore will just throw out a porno every couple of years.
Right.
It's really weird. It's really bizarre. But yeah, people are taking Lovecraft stuff and they're doing their own wild and crazy things with it, whether it's making a detective story or making a bunch of kids getting in crazy adventures. So it's it's weird how it stood the test of time. I mean, it's almost.
Well, I think also. At this point. Well, I think also too, it kind of goes back to HP himself, because he always did that. He had a core of writers that he hung out with and just passed stories along, and he didn't mind if they took a pass at it and created their own thing, their own universe. So I think that's what's kind of nice about it is, all of us kind of working on this type of stuff together in the same vein, and as an homage back to him himself,
It's a crazy time period that they lived in, because he tried to make a living and could as like a short story writer, which is kind of an unheard of thing nowadays, that I need to write a short story to pay my rent. But like they had a little click that they did. They wrote stuff and they got paid for it, and it was kind of awesome. He wrote a story for Harry Houdini too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, his story, his autobiography, wasn't at all in the slightest bit. Yeah, so
so Harry Houdini told a true story about where he's getting chased by, what was it, a giant Egyptian god or a mummy or something?
Yeah, exactly.
And he just basically had H.P. Lovecraft ghostwrite a story for him, which is kind of a cool little tidbit of history.
Right.
That only weirdos would ever actually know that.
Right. Well, and that's kind of the beauty of like doing Kickstarter and indie comics now, is you don't need 1,000 people who are going to be into this one thing that you're doing. You need like maybe 100, maybe 200 people to be into this thing. And that's just enough that you can actually make this thing come to life. And that's kind of the beauty of it. It's like, so you can do weird things and you can do them in weird ways. And, as long as you can convince enough people to go with you on that journey, you can do it.
Yeah. The niche thrives on Kickstarter. You can do whatever you want, basically.
I mean, it's kind of a corny sentiment, but when people ask me why I launched so many Kickstarters, I say it's because I'm confident that I have people that will support it. I mean, it's kind of a weird feeling launching a Kickstarter, not knowing if people are going to be there. But the $5 or $10 people give you to buy your book is nothing compared to the confidence that they give you with every pledge to say, look, keep making this weird crap, and we'll continue to read it. So that's kind of the invaluable thing about every pledge.
Yeah, I always say they're the fuel for us, but I want to make sure you're the fuel financially, but more emotionally, like just having people behind you, like, oh, I got to do this next chapter because these people actually like this thing that I love, or they love this thing that I love. It's a fuel to keep working when it's not that easy. Go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Oh no, that's okay. No, you're absolutely right, and it's also nice too because you get immediate response by their pledges, their how they like the rewards or comments or anything like that. You're not waiting 6 months down the road for it to appear in a magazine for maybe another 6 months for it to finally come out. You may or may not get feedback. Like that's what's so great with the direct marketing with Kickstarter is that you can within weeks or maybe a couple of months if you're on the outset to get stuff out to people so that you get a response and you're able to do another Kickstarter and just kind of keep building that up.
By the way, no matter how many times I do this and how many times people tell me that they like something that I put out, I will never believe them. I still think they're lying. I always think they have some agenda that they're lying to me, and so you're all a bunch of liars. Whoever says that.
No, you're good. You gotta have confidence.
It's not true. You got some scam you're running.
You actually caught us
running into every project I do.
This has been one long con on Frank Martin.
Yeah, I'm convinced. All of you are in on it. You got some side Facebook chat going on that I'm not in on.
We're waiting until 2023. You're going to launch and not get a single backer. And it's going to be hilarious.
It's going to be my mom. She's going to be my $1 backer.
Not even the full pledge, just the thank you.
Keep it going, honey.
Well, I had this one guy who kept backing all of my books as I put them out, and he was from Russia, and he never ever filled out a survey, so I never had an address where I could send him. So I'm piling up books for him, and I'm up to like number 9, and he still hasn't sent me anything, and I'm like, this has got to be some sort of Russian, money laundering scam thing going on. Like at some point he's going to come and he's going to demand like all the money back, and it's going to be like funneling drug money. And no, he finally got back in touch with me. He's like, oh yeah, I was in the hospital, and I told my family to back everything you did, because it just was, it looked like such a good project, and I'm like, I'm so
Oh.
sorry. I thought you were a Russian mobster.
I love the idea of money laundering, like $10 to $15 every time months or something. Really breaking it in.
Well, you know, the exchange rate, it's worth more.
Yeah.
Put 200 rubles in every 4 months.
That was pretty good. I like that. That's a good accent.
Yeah.
I can do accents for 8 seconds and then they turn Indian and it's bad. So just don't ask me to do it again.
That's 7 seconds longer than anything I can do.
Yeah.
Everybody's got like weird backer stories. I got a guy who he consistently backs at the digital pledge every campaign, but his credit card consistently fails and he never fixes it every single campaign. So I'm like, dude, do you need help or something? I don't really. Thank you for the support for the $5 never goes through, but like, what's going?
No, that person like gets off on watching their credit card bounce that payment or something. That's some weird shit.
But it's never more than $5. So it's just like, I don't want to hurt your campaign, but I just want to like give it to you a little bit. I'm like, okay.
Well, do you guys ever do the thing? So I don't do this myself. I swear. Yeah. Where you just sit there and you watch the pledges come in, and then you watch the cancellations come in too, and you're like, why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Not
do
until
whatever
the end, when you're close.
I do whatever I can not to look at the page.
Yeah, it's smart.
I need to keep myself busy.
This last campaign we ran, it was really weird. It seemed like every time I would get a cancellation, I would get a new pledge of the exact dollar amount, and that would be the only thing that happened during the dead period. So I'd have a day where I'd get -75 and +75.
At least that's convenient accounting. I mean, that's nice. That's easy, clean math for you.
It felt like people said, "Oh, I'm about to leave. Do you want my seat?" Yes, and then they got up and got out of the way.
You know what's funny about that is that
same $75 back and forth.
somebody on the outside's looking at your campaign and thinking this thing is really dead, but like you're going on an emotional roller coaster that nobody is aware of. Like what the hell?
It happened like 6 times, and it was dollar for dollar, $25, 20 -25, 75 -75, 13 -13. And so I was just like, all right, that's just the story of this campaign is that, which is a lot better than when I've had like 6 cancellations in a row, and you're like,
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna quit. They found out. They figured out what's.
I'm a fraud.
So before you hit launch, does everybody's heart skip a beat, or are you guys past it? Because mine still does.
No, I launched that shit.
I can't be caught up in that emotion anymore. I used to do that with all my early Kickstarters and everything, and that's way too stressful. Like either make it or don't, whatever. Like support me or don't. Like you don't like the idea, that's fine. Like it's not the end of the world. Because it's not like Kickstarter fucking takes my money if it fails. Like I'll do it again. I'm a crazy man. I'll do Kickstarters every week if I have to. You better support me, or I'm really gonna kickstart this shit. You want to see me be really annoying on Twitter? Oh, trust me, I haven't even started.
Do you guys have like a pre-launch ritual? Because if I launch on a day, I always launch it like at 11 o'clock the night before. And I hit launch and then I just go to sleep and I don't look at it at all because I like that little emotional boost when I wake up and I have a little bit of a head start for the day that a couple people backed overnight. That kind of
has that ever backfired on you where you wake up and like there isn't those pledges there?
You know what? No, but
that would be my fear.
I did
freak out about that.
I did launch once at like 12:30, and as soon as I hit launch, I got the email that I got my first backer, and I'm like. Dude, what are you doing? He goes, I don't know. I was just on the computer and I saw it and I clicked it. I'm like, I just did it 30 seconds ago.
Why are you up right now?
I do one time on accident. I think it was my second or third campaign. My dog was sick. So it was like, you got to take the dog to the vet at 10. I'm like, well, I got to launch. I told people I was launching it, this morning. So I got up early and I launched at like 8:30, grabbed my dog, get in the car. And that vet had no Wi-Fi, no cell service at all. And so I was sitting there and I was like, I think this is what I need to do at the beginning of campaigns instead of, like Frankie said, you get too high, too low, whatever. So I do try to hit launch and kind of put my phone down and get away for either, go into work, go into the workout room, go anywhere else for an hour or two. And then I come back and I'm like, oh my God, all right, we've got backers, we're going. So I get away from
us. Thank God.
I had like a year ago, I had a campaign, and it was launch day, and the first couple hours were great, and then it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I hadn't had a backer for like 2 hours, and I was still pretty far from the funding goal. I go, that's it. I got 21 days left, but I know it's over. I'm not going to get another backer for 21 days. And I know like one side of my brain is saying you're dumb, like that's not true. The other side of my brain was completely convinced that in the 6 hours since I've launched, I've run this thing dry, and
that's it. The well was tapped.
So it's
but that's like I feel like that's valid, because like with the Kickstarters, usually your funding is going to come in those first 2 days. Sometimes even like the first 6 hours, like you said, and then you'll get the people at the very end. They're like, oh fuck, I got to back this before it's done. And in the middle, that's why when you said you run shorter campaigns, I'm thinking of doing one that I would be like 7 days. It's going to be a 7-day blitz of me yelling about it, and then it's done. Because most of that funding is going to come either right in that first day and right at the end, but it hardly flows in the middle, not in a meaningful way most of the time.
Right. Shorter campaigns have a lot of upside, because it's just more turnaround time. I got a lot of stuff to push, and the longer you have a campaign, the more time that you're eating up out of the year. That you can't launch something else. So
right. Well,
and the only thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I always like the shorter ones, but the shorter ones you really got to have that built-in base.
Yeah.
Like, people got to know what you're doing, have seen what you're doing, be there like on the first day to show up. And then you're right, they're not going to show up till the end. But if you have this thing that nobody's seen before, and you're trying to really attract a new audience, that's kind of like my point of view is like, that's when you need the longer thing, because people are just going to randomly show up on day like 24 and just say, oh, this looks interesting. Let me try this. I've never heard of this before.
And I feel like people who are, go ahead.
That was it Oriana from Kickstarter? One of the, she had a couple of, I think she appeared on like a backer kit webinar or something. One of the things that she says is, you're right. There are pluses to shorter campaigns. There are also some minuses that if you're trying to line up, interviews or things like that, that happen throughout, it's a lot harder to do that in such a concentrated state. So you have to kind of spread it out across that, 21 days or 30 days or something like that, which I don't know. My first successful 30-day campaign was brutal.
30 days.
They're not all brutal.
Brutal, really exceptionally brutal. But by the time I had done my third campaign, when we were doing Crossover Division number 1, we didn't make until I think we were on something like this, Kevin, when I made, and it was like the last day or two, but it didn't feel as brutal because there was some steady progress throughout the month. So, and then this last one was just awesome because we made like after 10 days, and I was like, this is what this feels like. This is awesome.
Well, let me ask you this, because I've never really understood the goals, because I run into a lot of people, they write to me or get on social media or whatever, and they're like, hey, I want to do this Kickstarter thing. I'm trying to figure out where to set my goal. Like, should I set it at like 4,000? Should I set it at 7,000? Should I set it at what? And I'm like, if you don't make 7,000, are you still going to do the comic? And they're like, yeah. Then I'm like, why are you setting it at 7,000? I mean, that makes no sense to me. Set it at $5, and just get what you get, and you put it out, and then you have a better idea for next time.
By the way, I'm going to pull the screen up because you are practicing what you preach. Look at the funding goal of Miskatonic and Lovecraft PI, $300.
Very nice.
And the funding
I
so
sweated
far,
that $300 too.
For 5 minutes.
You're
Yeah,
right.
that's fine.
$15,000. So if you had made say you had made a $12,000 goal, you would have been sweating for a lot of this campaign. But at 300, you're like, I think we're gonna make this shit.
Yeah, it's like go for
Well, I
whatever
think-
your minimum like financial line is. Like if you need the money
Right.
to pay your team and you can't do it by yourself, you know, then set your goal for that. But if you can, like if you're able to pay your team a portion of it or whatever, cover your costs so that you're not like hurting, you know, basically is what I would say, like the line.
Right. Well, and also
Well, I think too-
a lot of people have already paid their team by this point. You know, it's like a lot of people have already either committed to doing the comic or have already done all of the art or have already paid whatever it was out of pocket. So at this point, like, even if you don't make enough to pay your team, like you've already paid them and you're trying to pay yourself back, if you don't get it, what are you going to do? Are you just going to stop, or are you going to try and go for a smaller amount? Are you going to produce fewer comics? Or are you going to try and get it out? You know, really the goal should be the bare minimum.
Yes, totally agree.
Yes. Well, and I also think too is if you have a lower goal to hit, then you can add more stretch goals, which I think also kind of allures more, fish, so to speak. And it's also, if you do it right with the stretch goals, it doesn't really cost you much more in postage, keep everything flat, and so on and so forth. So then they're getting more bang for their buck. You feel better about it, but also just because of postage being so expensive now too, I think it just kind of adds a little bit more buffer. It doesn't cost you a whole lot in the end. Merchandise wise.
Well, Kevin had some words of wisdom long ago that I've internalized.
I don't remember these, so if they suck, I'm going to say it wasn't me. But if they do suck, it probably was me.
That during the campaign, we love our physical backers, but during fulfillment, we love our digital backers.
Yeah, that is 100% true.
Absolutely.
So this is an interesting question that Sorcier has, about if once the project reaches the funding, do backers say, oh, they're not going to help you anymore? I've never run into that experience. We've been doing this a long time where we keep our goals really low. I've found psychologically it seems to be the reverse, that if you are, at 200% of your goal, 300% of your goal, whatever it is, the percentage of your goal, the backers tend to see that as, oh, this is successful. Something is happening here. I want to find out what's going on with this. And if you're doing like Frank, where you're popping them out all the time and they're successful, success breeds success. People want to know what you're doing. They figure, okay, all these people can't be wrong or be Russian mobsters. So there must be
you got one.
Find out what it is. Yeah.
My sentiment with that is there could be two types of backers. There's people that give you support because they want to help you, and then there's people that want to read your work.
Right.
And if you've already hit your goal and you smashed it or whatever, and the people that don't want to back you because they say, oh, they don't need my help anymore, I mean, that's not really like a backer that I need. I don't, at this point, I don't want people that are going to give me charity. I want people that want to read what I want to read. So it doesn't really, I would almost view it as a positive deterrent in a way, because at this point, I wouldn't want that person that doesn't want to read, but that wants to help anyway, Yeah.
I mean, and I think too, though, those two customers are like entirely different, right? The people that want to help up until that 100%, but then once it hits that 100% goal, you have a new market of customers who, like you said, they're looking at that and saying, oh, it's already successful. Well, now I know I'm getting this. Because sometimes I feel like you're asking your buyer or your backer, especially if they jump on early, to join you on an adventure, basically, right? In the getting this made thing. And sometimes they get caught up in that too, and they don't want it to see it fail. Like the Killer Kickstarter that just finished like right before we went on. I don't know if you guys saw that. They were like they had an $8,000 goal, and like with like 6 minutes left, they needed like $100. And like there's like, I was tweeting about it. I upped my pledge. I'm like, these guys gotta fucking get this. Like they're so close. You get caught up in it. So I think part of that is like some people don't want to do that, right? So they're just like, I'll just wait until it's like at 90%, 95%, past 100%. They're two totally different.
That's the weird thing about Kickstarters. The closer you get to the goal, the higher probability you have of funding.
Yes.
So like almost nobody gets 95% funded and then just doesn't.
fails. Yeah.
It's like
even
very
crazier.
slim percentage.
It's crazier. Almost nobody gets over 50% and doesn't fund. And it's so crazy that if you've got a $5,000 goal, if you get to 2,500, you're probably going to make it. And that makes no sense to me, but the numbers lay it out that it's like 90% if you get to half. So
It's Kickstarter Gravity.
Yeah. Well, also, talking about those different kinds of backers, one of the things that I've found, and I'm sure the people who have done this a long time probably feel the same, which is people don't. Well, there's a good number of backers who are coming in and they're not looking at it and saying, I want this, and this item. They're coming in and saying, okay, I want to support this person. I want to support this person $50 worth, or I want to support this person $10 worth. And then they just look and see whatever the tier happens to be that's near the amount that they want to support you. And, when you do this a lot, I'm sure you've seen this, is those people who started off at 10, they start moving up. It's like, okay, this time they want to support you at 15, or this time they want to support you at 25, or, they grow and, they take ownership of your series, of your comic. It's like you were saying, where, they get really involved in the success of it, that they really feel like they're a part of it. And the great thing about Kickstarter is they are a part of it. I mean, they're the ones driving these things to become successes.
Right.
Well, I got a question for you. Kevin and I have talked about this a lot. I mean, I kind of look to you and Kevin and, to a certain extent, Frank, because he's launched so many. But, I mean, what you're doing is serializing on Kickstarter, which is what, I guess, I don't know if that you guys are crazy, if I'm crazier, because
Very
I'm
crazy.
trying to do that too. So, I mean, I know Kevin has an endpoint for Tart, and I've got an endpoint for my series, and I know it's going to take me 20 issues to get there. Is Miskatonic, does it have an endpoint, and you're just going to keep going, right?
Right. So we have endpoints of our arcs. We don't have a, this is the final end of the series, because, I mean, I'm sure you guys know this. Like, you don't write 50 issues at a time. You write one page at a time. You write one panel at a time, and as you write, things change. So I have ideas of how it might end, but I also have ideas about what might happen after that. So we have big story arcs, and we have them planned out, and we have small story arcs, and we have them planned out. And so we do the small story arcs, and then we do the bigger story arcs worked in there, and then we do the larger ones, and it just keeps going. And I was talking to Kevin about this earlier. When you do this long enough, at some point you stop writing the characters and the characters start writing for themselves. Like, they tell you what they want to do and what they want to say and who they are. And at that point, it's just like, okay, I'm just transcribing at this point and letting them run the show.
That's one of the weird things.
Sorry, go ahead, Frank.
I was just going to say, that's one of the weird things writers say that normal people are like, what are you talking about?
Every time,
but it's totally true.
Crazy person.
Yeah.
I have these voices in my head, and they're telling me what they want. Giving it to them.
Well, hey, Will, what I was going to say too is to answer your question as well, is we have a second series that we launched this year. We just finished our second Kickstarter for it. It's called Berserker Soul Island. Now we have already in the can, we've got 7 out of 8 issues finished, and it took us a long time to do that. But because because of learning through Kickstarter and just just the whole concept of creating a comic book with other folks and so on and so forth, and how sometimes you hit the deadlines and sometimes you don't. One of the things I wanted to do with Berserker is knowing that it didn't have Lovecraft in the name and it was kind of its own, it was going to be a harder series to try to sell. I wanted to let Lovecraft kind of continue on Kickstarter for a while, and then when I launched Berserkers, it took us 5 or 6 years to get all the books together and done. But now, which is great now, is that it runs in between our Lovecraft stuff and another title that we're going to launch in September. So, to answer your question, I think it's a great idea to have serial stuff like that too, because it's a nice filler if you're doing other projects in between.
Well, I mean, and I guess I'm kind of going into it, benefiting from from the wisdom that you guys have, gleaned because you've done, 12 issues, or, Kevin's done 12 or 13 issues. That, Kat, I know, has done like 7 issues of like father, like daughter.
Right.
So when you started out, because you guys are kind of trailblazing this, you're launching number 1 or you're launching number 2, did you see yourself getting up to 10 or 12 or 20 or 30? The sky's the limit, I guess.
I remember after we did Volume 1 of Tart, seeing a friend of mine on Twitter who has unfortunately passed away, saying something that I thought was valid for his point of view. I didn't agree with it, and I argued against what he said. But his thing was, I think Kickstarter is about putting it out there, and coming back to a project is cheating the system or something like that. And I just kind of said back to him, well, here's why I disagree. I put it out there. People have bought it. It was successful. I'm putting out the next chapter. They're going to tell me if they liked it. And that is going to tell me more than anything else I can do, whether they're still enjoying it, is by coming back chapter by chapter by chapter. Now, I think it's really commendable when people come with like our two Frankies with very different style books, 25th and Broken Bear. It's amazing to me that those are the same writer, and it's really cool that they are, and so that's courageous. But it's also like, okay, so literally you've read Miskatonic High 1 through 4. You're back in 5. That is a guarantee that I like this and I want more. So it wasn't the goal, but it was kind of like, well, hell, this is great. It's fun. It's working. It's a shitload of work. But why go a different?
Why stop?
Why wouldn't you go back to the well? Why wouldn't, if you literally have a list of people who bought your book, why wouldn't you take the list and go back to it and say you want the next one? I don't like that logic of being like, no, you shouldn't do that. Why would you handicap yourself?
If you go to a convention and it's always the biggest seller you have of the year, you don't go like, well, I'm not going back to SuperCon. I sold too much last year.
Right, but I think it's also about the nature of how Kickstarter has changed. The original concept for Kickstarter was, I want to make this project. I need to get the money to make it. I do it once, and now I'm an established person, and I can get traditional funding for these things. And the mistaken thinking there is that there's any money in comics.
Yeah.
There just isn't. So, that's why you see majors and major indie people starting to come to Kickstarter, because this is the only place where this stuff is actually working right now, that you can actually get the money necessary to even make the stuff. And as someone who is very minorly successful at this, I will tell you, no one is making money at this. The people who you think are insanely successful, they're not making a lot of money at this. All the money is going out. It's going to printers. It's going to the postal service. It's going to the postal service again when they lose your book. It's going to the artist who, frankly, aren't getting paid enough, but it's as much as you can afford to pay them. It's going to the letterers who aren't getting paid enough, but are getting paid enough that you can pay them. There's not that much money going around, and I understand that concept, but there's just
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah, it's true. No one is.
Charlie nails it.
But
Charlie knows more than us, because he's seen some back end stuff that we don't see. Yeah, right. We're all doing this because we love it. So go ahead, Mike.
Right. So the only thing that I was going to say is when people say that once I get it to 100%, I'm just going to stop because this project doesn't need it anymore. It absolutely does. Every project needs the money as much as you can. The backers are the ones who are driving the comics market right now. You are the ones who are controlling what gets made and what doesn't get made. Every pledge at a time.
So this is where the argument starts. And I've had this argument with people, and I've seen a bunch of people debate it. And the question is Kickstarter for everybody? And you were talking about the majors. We see Scott Snyder and all the other huge names, the biggest names you could think of in comics, seeing the benefits of Kickstarter and coming to it. And then we have publishers jumping into the boat. We have Boom launching stuff and other licensed properties. Is there a line that needs to be drawn? I mean, how long before we see Marvel and DC launch their own original graphic novel on Kickstarter? I mean, is it really a marketplace for absolutely everybody to jump in and start doing stuff?
Right. That's a good question. And, the thing is, the backers are going to decide that, and I, personally, I think it's big enough for everybody. I think I'm surprised that Marvel and DC haven't done it yet, to be perfectly honest, because again, it's the only place that's making money.
Well, that's the question. Backers can decide that, but should Kickstarter at some point decide that?
No.
I mean, Kickstarter is never going to turn down the money.
Right.
That's the thing, right?
Well,
like Kickstarter essentially now is not the make a project, make your dream come true thing. It's a glorified pre-order service, basically, that gets you direct access to the making of whatever you're backing, which is the benefit of it, plus helping the project, plus getting whatever you're backing for.
Right.
But at the same time, though, I'll never begrudge any creator. Go get your bag, go Scott Snyder, go every top tier creator that doesn't necessarily need to do Kickstarter to make the book. But if they know they can go to Kickstarter and make money, go get your money. Publishers,
But
I
think it also brings
market. Maybe you shouldn't, but again, whatever. That's no one's gonna stop you.
I respect anybody who comes to Kickstarter and leaves it as nice as it was when they came, or nicer. So I do want and hope that people who don't need to be there deliver the books. I hope that they basically. I'm personally against people, and I've said this on this before. So I am against people using Backer Kit to charge shipping. It bothers me. It angers me. I feel taken advantage of when it happens, and I'm against it. I have felt that when pros come to Kickstarter, that is the default for them. So I'm not a big fan, and when I notice it, I don't back it, and I never notice it, and that's on me. But okay, so that's the deal. But as long as you're delivering the books, as long as you're giving what you said you were going to give, if I'm Kickstarter, I want 10% of $1 million because Keanu Reeves decided he would have his picture taken on it. I can't be mad about somebody who's gonna bring in a lot of money that makes the platform that allows me to have a career exist. But I do not like it if they take advantage of it and piss off backers so that they're less likely to back later, because I need Kickstarter and they don't. So that's my thing. It's for everybody, but treat it like you need it.
Right. Well, and I kind of look at it as a good thing. Like I'm a half glass full kind of guy, but I think if Marvel and DC and other comic companies are on Kickstarter, what it does is it creates a new version of your local comic shop, where somebody can come to Kickstarter and they can say, okay, I'm getting X-Men here, I'm getting Batman here. And I think back to my days of going to the local comic shop, and I would get my X-Men and I would get my Batman, but I'd also look for Usagi Yojimbo, or I'd look for Love and Rocket, or, that was my entry point for finding indie comics that could exist in the same place. By having a place where only indies can exist and only majors can exist, I don't necessarily see that as a good thing. I see it better when it's all one marketplace.
And you just said something that almost guarantees Marvel and DC will never do that, because for the most part, local comic shops dislike Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So if Marvel and DC joined Kickstarter for more than a one-off, I think that they would have an unbelievable amount of blowback from the local comic shops. So the good news is that's not going to happen for us little guys. But if they want to do a hardcover omnibus of, I don't know, John Byrne's West Coast Avengers that's been out of print, I think that might be a fun way to get some books back into print that they don't want to put the money into.
Right.
Yeah, that would be a great idea, actually. Tons of stuff.
But I also see them doing interesting things. You know, they're creating new comics specifically for webtoons. I mean, that's an interesting thing to watch these majors try to innovate. Again, I think it's interesting. I think it's a cool thing to see what they're going to do. And where I'm really hopeful is the kid who's coming in to buy X-Men, in my imagination, that kids still buy X-Men, are coming in to buy these comics or read these comics. Even if 100 of them come in and only one person is looking to see something new, that's great, because we live in a world where one person checking out something new is a big thing for us. So I'm hopeful that bringing more of the people who like comics to become aware of what's going on there, to see what's happening in indie comics, because Kickstarter indie comics are great. Webcomic indie comics are great. There's so much great stuff happening out there that I wish more comics fans would find. So I'm hopeful.
And wasn't it? I mean, the amount of comics published through Kickstarter made it like the third largest publisher or something. I don't remember the actual numbers, but it was crazy the amount of revenue that comics on Kickstarter were generating in respect to the direct market. With respect to the direct market. I mean, it was. And don't trust me for numbers. So
no, and it's growing every year. I saw that graph on Twitter. The chart was going up. Over the past 3 years. It's not stopping.
They do. There are. You got to think how many comic shops are there in the country. There's a bunch, and I would say there are a handful that really like getting stuff from Kickstarter. It's still not a high percentage.
Oh, definitely.
But there are definitely comic stores that love indie books, love indie creators, and they use retailer tiers. So they definitely happen.
In fairness to comic shops too, Kickstarter was the Wild West at the beginning, and a lot of local comic shops were excited about it and backed things and never got their books. So the people that came in 2013 and 14 and just grabbed $3,000 and went away, poisoned the well for people who wanted to get their books in shops. And so what are there, 2,000, somewhere around 2,000 comic shops in America, 1,500 to 2,500, depending on what month you're looking. And there might be 50 that's willing to back a Kickstarter at all, and there might be 10 to 15 that do it to find books.
Right.
I had it. I think I had it on my early campaigns. The most I ever had was 4 local comic shops back the retailer thing, and I kind of stopped because it made me sad.
I mean, it's kind of a hard sell for retailers to pick up a retailer tier, because usually if people want a Kickstarter book, they know to go to Kickstarter to get it. So it's not as easy of a sell if it's sitting on a shelf in a comic shop. If someone walks in and they don't know what Miskatonic High is, or what Eat My Flesh, Drink My Blood is, or who we even are as authors, whereas you can have just a Batman comic by anybody or a Spider-Man comic by anybody sitting there, and that will sell. I mean, I get it. I get why you wouldn't want to be, saying here's $50, here's $100 for X amount of copies. That might be hard sells.
Yeah.
And Kickstarter is the opposite of their business model. Their business model is, I order 10 books. I do not pay for them until they show up at my shop. Now, if I can't sell them, I'm screwed out of the money. But when they show up at my shop, I pay for these 10 comics. Kickstarter, they pay, and they have to hope within 4 months they get the books. So it's just different. It's asking them to take a risk that's pretty rough on a shop.
I was going to say, most of them, it's not a gamble. They already know that they're going to have customers that are going to buy those books. They're going to have a fan base, because they're not going to take that chance. And a lot of them won't even back a retailer tier because they are friendly and familiar with the creator, and they could just buy it outside of Kickstarter and do it that way. So to put it up there as on shelf space, thinking some retailer is browsing Kickstarter looking for stuff. It just it doesn't happen like that.
We had Danny from the collective in just outside of Orlando, Florida. It's Altamont Springs, which if you guys are going to Disney or Universal, look up the collective and go visit that shop. It's great. I'm telling you, it's worth it. But Danny does actually back some Kickstarters, and he's got a wall with the books that he's backed at Kickstarter. So if you guys are going to be in Orlando, look up Danny.
That's smart. That's a good idea.
I have a place in Sarasota in Florida, and for some reason we drove down in the spring, and I was like, we got to drive through Orlando, and I was like 4 hours away, and I messaged him, and I'm like, weird question, what are you doing in 4 hours? Are you working? he was like, yes. Why? I go, I'm driving from New York to Florida, and I'm going to stop in. And I took a little detour for 20 minutes. My kids grabbed some books. I said hi to them. It really is a great shop.
That's awesome, man. Well, it is 12:06. As I said, everybody want to go through one more time on your books, and we can shut this down, or we can keep going if you're having fun. But I know that this seems to be the hey man, this is really late, Kev. So I don't want to put you guys on the spot. So instead, let's go start with pipe cleaners, and I will pull it up. Give us what is the tier that you're most excited for people to see.
I'm most excited for people to see the title because it's called Pipe Creepers.
Oh. I'm into my wine, man. Shit happens after midnight.
You know what? Honestly, the tier I'm most into is the $8 tier, because that's my digital deluxe tier, and I don't have to ship anything, as you said. So people, if you want to, I have no problem with you just reading the book on your computer screen. So for $5 you can get the book. That's the digital tier. The digital deluxe, I have some horror shorts that I produced that I would include in that package. So it's basically a couple short stories too, and nice. A couple of variant. I have a theme song that I commissioned for every book that I do because they're fun. And that's part of it too, and a whole bunch of add-ons, which, as we were talking about earlier, when you say kind of success leads to more success, that's one of the awesome things about Kickstarter now, that they have add-ons, so that if it's not your first book and it's your 20th, people have 15 other things that they could look at and back. So Charlie, thank you. I don't know if that's directed at me, but thank you anyway.
We're going to take it that way. But when we talk to Frankie White, I'm just going to put that up. And we talk to this katana guy and Lovecraft.
Are you spending Charlie's money?
I take credit for it all. We had David Papos from the OZ last week, and I saw he's like up at like 700 backers, and I was like, we can't take credit for his success, but I'm going to.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to leave the Dauntless to the end. So let's look at Miss Katana Kai and Lovecraft PI one more time. What is the tier that you guys are the most excited about?
Probably the tiers that we're most excited about are either the trade paperback or the hardcover for the crossover. We're doing both this and our regular issue 12, and the issue 12 is doing well, and we want to make sure that everybody knows what's going on with the crossover. So we came up with this cool idea for the cover for the trade paperbacks, where our art team on Miss Katana Kai did the left half, and his art team for Lovecraft PI did the right half. To show that both teams worked on the book. And we added 23 new pages, 2 new stories, and it's we just added a thing where we're doing signed book plates, signed and numbered book plates for both the hardcovers and the trade paperback. So we're really happy. We're really excited about those books. There's something about getting a trade where you get the whole story in it that it feels really good as a creator that you made this. So those are the ones that we're really excited about.
By the way, I love that thing about comics, that you have that cover with both art teams. You can it's such a fun medium to play around with when you get to think outside the box and do stuff like that you don't normally see all the time.
Right, and that's exactly it. Is at the people who are doing backing Kickstarter comics, they don't want the same thing that they're getting every place else. They want somebody who's people who are trying to do different things and creative things and really reaching outside the box. So I mean, if you can do that, you will find an audience.
Yeah, I write a lot of prose, and novels are fun, but you can't really, you don't have as many tools in your toolbox to be as creative as you can with comics. So I love seeing stuff like that.
And you don't have that collaborator with the artist who
Absolutely.
he walks down the hallway and then you get something back where the character is walking down the hallway, but there's, coat rack that he's going to use in the fight that you didn't know existed. You're like, oh, okay. So like that team building collaboration is a beauty.
I get that question all the time about what is the pros and cons of both. And yeah, the pros of when you're writing a novel is that you have a direct shot to the reader. It's all on your shoulders. It's a very pure form of storytelling. But the downside is that you're doing it all by yourself. You have no partner that you could play off with, and there's no real collaboration there, unless you're a jack of all trades and you're making a comic by yourself, which a lot of people do. Which God bless them.
David, who does the art on Lovecraft PI? I don't know if I've caught that.
That's on the cover there. It's Daniel Segulia. So he's been with me now for 11 years.
Okay, wow.
He worked on Berserkers, and he started with me on that, and now he's moved over to Lovecraft as of Volume 2. Mm-hmm. So he's been with us for actually my whole team has been with me for about 11 years now.
That's a marriage.
Yeah.
That is much longer than most marriages.
Well, the thing I find with my team is that we have such a shorthand now. So once I hand off the story to my script editor, and then we go over it with the team and everything. Like you guys were just saying with the co-rack. I mean, the stuff that they turn out is way better than I obviously give them a bit of a roadmap, but what they come back with is just way better than I could have even conceptualized in my own head. So we have such a nice working relationship. And what I was going to say with the trade, Mike was saying that we have 23 new pages. We never discussed, like, prior to creating these new pages, what each story was going to be about. So I never knew what Mike was doing until he was finished, and then he didn't know what I was doing until I was finished. So, and they're both completely different of where these characters end up after the story, which I think is very exciting, and I think something that the fans will really enjoy in both, with both IPs.
Yeah. Well, I've only read issue 1, so I'm excited to get issue 2 and the epilogue. So I'm excited to see what happens going back in time in that thing. So, all right, Frankie White, you are not Kickstarter. This is what did you say the crowdfunding is called within Dauntless?
It's called Greenlight, but it's on Dauntless's website, dauntlessstories.com/EMF. Dave Matthews Band. The tier that I'm most excited for is, you were just looking at it, is that hardcover. Sky Patridge did a friggin' amazing job on it, and it's a literal work of art. The hardcover, so the book itself is letter sized. It's like 8x5 by 11 or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So it's a bigger book, and the regular is just going to be like a floppy, like those old school horror mags and stuff like that. But the hardcover is going to have a dust jacket. It's basically going to be like a coffee table art book, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be high quality paper, high quality cover, everything like that. The outside is going to be like one of those like virgin covers, so it's just the art, and then when you take the dust jacket off, it has the logo on it and everything. I'm super excited about that. And like I said, we're only printing as many orders as we get. So there's like 50 something left, I think. Once those are gone, we're not doing any more. If we don't hit 100, we're not printing 100. So you only can get it now, and we're done.
So that's how you created the fear of missing out.
Yes, get the FOMO, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say,
it's a cool book. That's like the thing. Like I'm excited to get like my copy.
Right. I think probably you might have doubled up on me. I might have to go back and get the hardcover. Damn it. This
What I was
might have
looking
been a
at, too.
really good choice of yours to be part of this, because
it's a really good value too. Really, when you break it down, $1 per page. It is primo stuff. Adam and HG. If you haven't seen the preview pages, check them out on that website. And if you haven't read Broken Bear, my other book, they worked on it. They are like a powerhouse duo that HG is going to be blowing up soon. Adam should be blowing up already. That dude is a master draftsman. It's awesome.
No, I really like Broken Bear. We've kind of on Twitter DMs talked. I love your beautifully flawed lead character in Broken Bear. I love that she just makes some terrible decisions and pays for them, and that's what I like.
That's all my babies are flawed assholes, basically. Always make bad decisions, but they want to do good, but it's really hard to be a good person sometimes. You just got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Sounds like my real babies.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. They're real people.
They're all beautiful. They're all beautiful assholes. Every single last one of them.
They are not idealized in any way whatsoever.
I'm a beautiful asshole, no matter what you say. All right, gentlemen, I really appreciate it. I had a blast. I'm going to say goodnight. Will and I are going to stay on for about 5 minutes and kind of bring up a couple of the projects for people that joined us over the last 3 weeks that are still going. You are more than welcome to stay, and you are more than welcome to go to sleep. So thank you very much. And the next time you have a book coming out, crowdfunding, please let us know. We'd love to have you back on.
Should be in about a week and a half.
We can have
2 weeks for me.
I'll see you guys. Good night.
It's great to meet you, Frank.
Guys.
Nice to meet you guys too.
Good night, guys.
Frankie, take care.
Night, guys.
Good night.
Mike and David, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, Will.
How's it going, man?
I think we did it again.
Oops, we did it again. Sorry. I was looking through my projects, and let's see. Tales from the Collective is still going, and the OZ.
Okay, so
And-
Tales from the Collective. I've got Tales from the Collective, the OZ, and Stake Presents Jessen.
Yeah,
That's what I have.
and I have issue 1 and 2 of Baron, the thin line between life and death.
Yeah, I think we backed that during. I think that came up during talking about the Collective. I don't know that one.
I think so. Yeah.
So I don't have that one up. So I'm going to put the OZ on screen, and
I'll get you the link for the other one.
I thought I was going to put the OZ on screen. What happened?
I don't know, man.
All right, the OZ is basically a spiritual sequel
There it is.
of The Wizard of Oz, and it's basically Dorothy's granddaughter, who is an Iraq War veteran, gets brought into Oz, and guess what? They have still been fighting since the Wizard and Dorothy left. I've read issues 1 and 2 of the 6-issue series, and it's absolutely phenomenal, and just got nominated for
Ringo Award, I believe, right?
a Ringo Award. It's up for best individual issue. So, and I think it's well worth that nomination. Everything we're going to talk about, I think if you're still listening, watching, you should probably back. But when a Ringo nomination is there, I think you really can.
I mean, we back them ourselves.
Oh, listen, if we're talking about it, Will and I have put our money towards the project, and we believe in it. And there have been a couple times where I'm back to Kickstarter and I've gotten the book and I felt like, oh, this book wasn't made for me. And guess what? I don't care, because the book got made. The creator's happy, and it's made for somebody else. And but reading the OZ, I know it's It's serious.
It's for you.
It's for me. And the same with Jessamy, David Byrne's series, because I mean, vampires, sexy ladies, the
1800s America, right?
Yeah, commentary on social media with his comic The Stake. But coming into this, it's basically Jessamy is somebody who works with the vampires to keep them a secret, but they something is happening in colonial America where she has to come and work to make sure the secret is kept. Did you see David's update today?
Wasn't there a new cover? I can't remember what was.
So he's got a stretch goal coming up for a very, very sexy cover with a ton of nudity. I want to see if I can find the thing. I want to read it. It was really funny. So the headline of there we go. The headline of the update is "So much to say, new stretch goal. It's naughty. Sharing is caring and being rewarded, and a new page." So I'm going to go down to the part where he talks about the naughty cover. So this is from David. New stretch goal. I've alluded to something special and a little naughty coming from Francesca. When we were brainstorming the main cover for this issue, I proposed a layout to Francesca based on a combination of a few of her ideas. We do this a lot when we lay out the covers and the book in general. I thought we were 100% on the same page, but when the partially completed cover came over, I got a little surprised and I had one small comment to her. They're all naked. Art is subjective, but also needs to be shareable. So we decided it was probably best to put clothing on everyone for the main cover. And that is the image emblazoned on all the marketing materials for this campaign. The not safe for work cover didn't die on the vine, though. Francesca finished it. She named this cover Hot Summer, the story of 5 French vampires who don't like clothes. So if they can reach $20,000, they'll open up a tier so you can get some TNA on your Stake Presents Jessamy. So if you're into that, let's get on Jessamy and make it happen. And then the collective.
Mm-hmm. I think.
Yeah.
Did they hit their funding?
They did. They're $31 over. They made it with 55 backers, but there's still 2 weeks to go. This is an anthology. Travis Gibb, his wife have a story in it. David Galliano, Chuck Pino, and his wife Wendy Gale. I believe last week Danny was saying this is Wendy Gale's first ever published story. So this is kind of like a really cool way to look at about 5 different stories. You get to find out. David is kind of putting final growth out there to find out what people like and let people know what that series will be. Viserion Tales by Wendy Gale, I believe, is her first ever published book. Voodoo
Nation's Tale in there, which I have number 2 right here.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Travis.
and Travis and his wife, I believe, worked on it. And Jonathan Hedrick's Capable has something. Now, Jonathan, we have to give a big shout out. He completed his campaign tonight for Capable successfully. So, way to go, my brother.
Yeah. Another success story. Do we get to take credit for that one too? I mean, we're taking credit for the OZ.
I take credit for everything. I don't think we do anything for anybody, but I'm taking all credit all the time.
Sounds perfect.
It's 12:24. We've talked to a bunch of people. We talked about the things that have already gone, and I'm tired, man. This is the first week of school. I had to actually get up at 7 every day.
Otis has decided that he needs me to walk him at about 6:30. I'm just not built for that, man. I mean, just not built for the mornings. It's not awesome. Every morning I tell him he's killing me, and every morning he doesn't care. So
no, that's a great thing about a dog. They're not here for us. They're here for us with love, but not with sleep or things like that. But let's go sleep.
Sounds good to me, man.
All right. Well, thank you. Catch you next week.
All right.